Hey guys, it's Allie, and today we are going to be doing my top 10 favorite books of 2017. Now, I read so many books this year. I read more than I ever have before. I read so many good books, so this was so hard to make, and some of my favorites were unfortunately left off the list because I didn't want this video to be forever long. So I am very excited because I had such a good reading year. It was such a good year for book releases, and I'm just super excited to talk about my favorite books. So let's go ahead and get into it. Coming in at number 10 is The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. This is a really recent read for me. I think I read it in like October or November, and I really loved it. It was such a cute little story. Like, you think it's just like, oh, it's just like a cute fluffy little children's classic. But oh no, then it hits you in the face with all these life lessons and all the feels, and it was just so good. I was super surprised by this. It just really touched my heart because it was just so amazing. Like, the illustrations were very cute. I really love the storyline and the characters and the lessons that were portrayed in this. It's so good. You guys have to read it because it is just absolutely fantastic. Coming in at number 9 on this list is none other than More Happy Than Not by Adam Silvera. I know that a lot of people really were not a huge fan of this book. Like, they loved it, but like they just thought his other works were better. But this is actually my favorite book he's written that I have read thus far. I know he's had other releases, but I've read this one and I've read History's All You Left Me, but I've not read his newest release, which is They Both Die at the End. And this is just a really good story about acceptance, and it's just really showing how you can't change who you are, no matter if you wipe your memory, no matter what you try to do, what society tries to get you to do. You cannot just wipe that clean. You are who you are, you were born the way you are, and there's nothing wrong with that. This is particularly about like living with like how you're gay and how there's nothing wrong with that, and that it's not a choice like most right-wing conservatives would tell you, but it's just who you are. And I really loved it. It really made me look at the LGBT community in such a different light, because at this point in time when I read this, I had not come to the realization that I'm actually bisexual. So I was just super into this, and it just really started the conversation in my mind, I think, because for my entire life, my parents had always told me, because they're right-wing conservatives, that it is a choice. You are choosing to sin against God. Their exact words, guys. And I just don't believe that's true. I personally think there's nothing wrong with me. I think there's nothing wrong with the kid in this. And it just really had such an emotional impact on me. And it's one of my favorite books of all time. And I just really enjoyed this book. It's really just about self-discovery. And it's in a very real sense a coming-of-age story, and just coming to the realization of not hating yourself. It's just really coming to the realization of who you are, coming to terms with it, and knowing that there's nothing wrong with you. And I think it's just an absolutely beautiful message, and I highly recommend you all check this out. Coming in at number 8 is What We Saw by Aaron Hartzler. This is a story that was inspired by a true event, and you know, he doesn't specify which one, but like, I'm just gonna tell you that it's the rape case from Steubenville, Ohio, which is not that far from where I live currently, so that's kind of scary. Every time I see the Steubenville, Ohio sign, all I can think about is this high school rape case. But in this book, we follow not the victim, but like someone who is just trying to figure out what really happened while everyone else is telling her to shut up. Basically, our main character leaves this party early, and after she had left, a girl ended up being sexually assaulted by multiple people in her high school. Just really about speaking out against sexual violence and letting your voice be heard in such an awful time when people are telling you to keep your mouth shut. Because your voice does matter. It can really get people convicted. This is a real thing. Like, rape is a thing that happens that most people don't like to talk about, which is why I love reading books about rape cases, because I think it's super important and there really needs to be a light shed on it. and this really did that for me. I read this in one day and I really, really loved it. It goes to super dark places, but like, you go on this journey with these characters about what really happened, and I just really, really loved it, and I think it really explored the topic of sexual assault very well, and I definitely recommend you all check this out. Coming in at number 7 is Wayfarer by Alex Bracken. I cannot tell you anything about the plot because it is the conclusion to her fabulous Passenger duology, but it was so good. Like, it had less of a focus on the romance, which a lot of people made it to where they liked Passenger more than this one, but because there was less romance, I actually liked this a whole lot more because we got to see our two love interests interacting with other people, being apart, and I really enjoyed that aspect of this, and it was also very action-packed, and I loved the writing, and I loved the characters. Some characters I hated before I now love, and some characters I loved before I now hate. It is just a super great story. It involves time travel and badassery, and there's a biracial relationship. There's a super emphasis on music, and it is just all kinds of fun, and I definitely recommend it. It's like a scavenger hunt through time kind of thing, and it's just absolutely amazing, and I highly recommend you check out this duology if you haven't already. Coming in at number 6 is This Monstrous Thing by Mackenzie Lee. If you've seen some of my other videos, you know I've been raving about this. It's a Frankenstein retelling with like steampunk and fantasy elements, and it's freaking fantastic. It has some lesbian representation, and it has a really addicting story and writing style, and it's just a super interesting take on the original Frankenstein story, because I had just read Frankenstein before I decided to pick this up, so I was super excited to get into this, and I absolutely loved it. It was a pleasant surprise with how much I loved it, because it also involves the actual book of Frankenstein and Mary Shelley, and it links the two physically into the story, and it's super interesting. I'm not going to say anything else because spoilers, but it's great. You need to pick it up. I love it. Coming in at number 5 on my list is Definitions of Indefinable Things by Whitney Taylor. This is a book that not a lot of people have been really talking about. I consider it to be a super underrated book from this year. It was released this year, I forget exactly when, but it came on my radar when I saw Emma Books up here on BookTube talking about it. And she's the only one I've seen talk about it, but it is absolutely freaking hilarious. Like, I was dying laughing out loud while I was just reading this, and it's also got some super great representation on depression. And it's something that I personally really, really related to because it deals with a side of depression that most people don't see. For instance, some people have triggers for their depression. Like, this is the reason I started, getting depression. And me personally, I never had a trigger. Not really. So I found this to be super relatable. It was absolutely hilarious. I love the writing style. Whitney Taylor is absolutely fabulous. I love all the characters. The storyline's great. It's just absolutely hilarious. It's so underrated. You guys have got to pick this up because it's absolutely fantastic. Coming in at number 4 on my list is A List of Cages by Robin Rowe. Now, this is a book that I don't know if I've raved about it on my channel yet, but guys, it's so, so good. Oh my lord. It does have a trigger warning for child abuse, so keep an eye on for that, as well as for OCD. So I really, really loved this. It's a super powerful story. It's dealing with like brotherhood and family and just, oh, it's so good. It's so good, guys. You have to read it. Oh my lord. I don't know how I can possibly make you read it, but you need to read it. Like, it's so, 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 so good. It just gives me all the feels. I was crying, and you know I'm not a book crier, but I was crying during this book. It just gave me all the feels. It had such phenomenal writing and characters and a storyline, and oh my god, it's so good. You have to read it. Now we are down to the last three, my top three for this year, and coming in at number 3 is, of course, Moxie by Jennifer Matu, because oh my lord, this book. It has a topic of feminism. It follows our main character Vivian, who starts this feminist zine whenever she is so fed up with the sexism in her high school, and it's just super interesting. I loved it. It made me feel so empowered as a woman, made me feel like I could do anything, and it just really powered me up. You know, every time there was a sexist comment in this book, I wanted to throw it because people irritate me with fucking sexism. But so good, so good. I absolutely loved this. It's just about speaking out against, you know, oppressing matters, you know, like sexism, for instance. So I really, really loved it, and if it's any indication of how absolutely amazing it is, Amy freaking Poehler blurbed it. She blurbed it. You have to read it. I don't know what else I can tell you to make you read it. I think everyone, man, woman, transgender, you can take something away from this, and I think that it was absolutely fantastic, and I highly recommend it. Coming in at number 2 on this list is The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. This was one I was having a toss-up between having this number 1 or number 2, but I ultimately decided to put it number 2 because number 1 was just, oh my god. But this is such a powerful story. It just deals with racism and police brutality. It's inspired by the Black Lives Matter movement, and it is just a super powerful story about speaking out against oppression, and it just does this in such a beautiful way because we follow our main character, Star Carter, who witnesses her black best friend Khalil be murdered by a white cop whenever he was unarmed. So it was just so good. It really just explored a lot of different topics, for instance, obviously racism and police brutality, but I really, really loved this. I think that everyone needs to read this because I was already a full supporter of the Black Lives Matter movement, but this just made me even more fired up because I think police brutality is a huge problem in this country currently. So this is a super current book that needs to be read by more people because it is just absolutely fantastic, so powerful, and I think everyone needs to read it. And the number 1 book, my all-time favorite book of this year, of all time, of 2017, is The Book Thief by Marcus Zuzak. This is such a powerful story. It has blown all other stories out of the water for me. It is a World War II historical fiction novel that is told in the perspective of death, and it just is a super powerful and moving story. You really feel like you are in that time. It's so interesting, and I have never cried harder than I ever have in my entire life than when reading this book. It really, really connected with me. It really hit me right in the feels, and I just could not stop crying. I was inconsolable. My brother was like, "What's wrong? What's wrong with you?" And I couldn't even talk because I was so upset. So this book is so powerful. It's such an amazing book. Everyone needs to read it. It's just really about the power of words and how they can just be a light in someone's darkness. And it's just an absolutely amazing book, and I think everyone should read this. It's such a big book, but it's so, so worth it. And I absolutely loved this. I just have no words really to describe how this book makes me feel, but I just have so much love and respect for it, and I think that it's a super powerful book that everyone needs to read. And there you have it. Those were my top 10 favorite books of 2017. What is one of your favorite books that you read this year? Comment down below. I would love to know. And that is going to be it for this video today. So thank you all so much for watching this. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.